Hello, Steeler fans, and welcome back to another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the Message Boards, joined by Wil Masisak. You know him as Bradshaw to Ben and Accidental Zen on Twitter. And our other colleague, Korey Karbowsky, could and should be joining us in the middle of this podcast somewhere. So we'll look to bring him in when he comes in. But we have a lot to talk about. And unfortunately, it's in a tone that you're all too familiar with.
Fire! Fire!
Yeah, for those
fire.
for those of you who aren't watching via video, Will's background this weekend is in the middle of a forest fire, which is kind of how Steeler fans probably feel at the moment, ready to burn shit down.
Only because I couldn't have like Pearl Harbor behind me, or I might have
That might be too far. That might
against
be
the rules of Zoom. Yeah,
gotcha.
how it goes.
It was a very unfortunate finish this past week. Our Pittsburgh Steelers fell to the Seahawks at home, 31-17. And probably the thing that most of the nation feels like when they have watched this game is a big special teams gaffe, which really just kind of set the team behind the Caleb Johnson. What's the best word to put this? Non-active
Misplay, brain
misplay.
cramp. Brain fart. This kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't know how you do that. I just don't. I mean, that's going to go down as one of those all-time, like, what the hell was going on through your mind type of plays, Will. You know, it's like there's all these YouTube videos of, like, the worst special teams fails. Something tells me that's going to be, like, top 10 for the rest of all time. I don't know. What were you thinking when that happened? Because, honestly, when that happened, I thought, shit, that's ball game. I was like, crap. There's no way.
Well, the way it was already trending, it wasn't going so well anyway, and that just sort of put it more out of reach, right? But I guess I would say this is a cost of there was a famous football coach, I can't remember, it might have been Tom Osborne, the coach of Nebraska, who said, maybe I should fact check this, but so one of those old coaches said that you could count the number of freshmen on your team, and that'll be how many losses, like the number of freshmen starting will equal how many losses you have at the end of the year. So that just felt like one of those situations where, that guy will probably never make that mistake again. Plexico Burress will probably never spike a live ball again.
Sure.
Like it's just the kind of thing that happens. Also, rookie Barry Foster, you might be too young to remember, but he did something very similar. The kickoff went over his head and just stopped before it got to the end zone. It was recovered. But he was the same thing, rookie running back on kick returns. See if you've heard this before, who didn't know the rules or didn't remember when the game started. So I think, there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of
vitriol is the word.
you're thinking, like, there's too much thinking going on. There's like all kinds of stuff you're worried about when you're the returner. And, you probably it's probably easy to get to thinking about too many of the wrong things and not about the thing you need to worry about in the moment and just get a little bit hyped up or whatever. But I actually think that play, although a terrible play that just, easily cost a touchdown, I'm not sure the Steelers win the game, even if they don't have to give up that play, because you could point to several other things. You could point to a really silly red zone interception from Aaron Rodgers that absolutely don't understand how that came to be. And then even worse, the worst thing was the third and goal from the 19. And Seattle is basically giving up and saying, okay, we're just going to get ourselves in position for a better field goal and take a 10-point lead. And instead, they let that guy walk into the end zone. So I actually think that was a worse transgression than what Caleb Johnson did. But of course, all three of those things were very bad. But the first two plays were made by veteran guys. It's a rookie mistake. Hey, you can sort of like get over that.
Yeah, I was going to say, the nation sees the Caleb Johnson fumble, but they don't see the rest of it. It's like the easy walk in, like you said, from Kenneth Walker on 3rd and 19. I mean, give me a break. Like, I think there's some high school teams that are more prepared for what happened there, and then the interception, the red zone, that's always a killer. I know Rodgers kind of threw Calvin Austin under the bus a little bit. With
I don't know. Can we just go to that for 1 second, Jeremy? Did you watch the All 22 on that?
I didn't see the all 22,
I
but
don't think Calvin Johnson had anything to do with that. Basically his tight end is boxing out the guy behind him, and the throw, instead of going to the direction where Freiermuth was boxing out, he threw it to the inside past
mhm,
Freiermuth. It's like
yeah.
if Calvin Austin's guy had come in and made a play, that would have been one thing, but I don't think his Calvin Austin's defender had anything to do with that. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe
I think Rogers was saying like, oh, he drifted back into the field where he was trying to throw it. But I'm kind of in the same boat with you. I didn't exactly see it that way, but yeah, just another unfortunate mistake that ultimately cost the Steelers the game.
none of those
But
things are good. Let's put it that
yeah,
way.
yeah, none of those things are good. But I mean, let's not kid ourselves. The run defense really wasn't. It improved marginally. It's not like it was fixed this past weekend. There was a great stat that ESPN threw up. I think it was Dan Orlovsky. When teams run at TJ Watt, they average 3 yards a carry. When they run away from him, they average something like 4.9 or something. And
Yeah.
ironically enough, that's where teams are running the ball. They are running it to the left side. So we're gonna have to do something different. I know we signed a few players this week. We brought in Jawan Bentley off the street to the practice squad, former Super Bowl winning linebacker for the New England Patriots. Ironically enough, who we will talk about more. Even though he said he's not going to give away any of the playbook, but it's not like he was there for the current
Yeah.
administration anyway. There. But Isaiah Hodgkins, I think Hodgins, can't remember the exact name. I think it's Hodgins.
Hodgins. Yeah.
Yeah, Hodgins, yeah. Who played for the Giants for a little bit. So
Oregon State.
Oregon, yep, I was about to say good old Oregon State kid there. So again, not moves that I think are really going to move the needle. I mean, I'm glad we got a linebacker that seemingly knows how to play the run. Just because it's funny, we got rid of a great guy who could play the run really well, and he landed Roberts. We could have just paid him a little bit more to
Yeah.
keep him around, but decided not to do that, even though we're
I'm
flush with cash right now.
I'm sorry. Do they not have a linebacker that was a wonderful run defender who's basically sitting on the bench for this team? Cole Holcomb, would be an obvious choice. I mean,
So I'm glad you said that. I want to throw some stats out there real quick on that, and then I'm going to let you dive in on that. When Cole Holcomb and Patrick Queen were playing, I think the Seattle Seahawks were averaging 2 yards a run or whatever on 6 plays that were run with both of them on the field. But when it was Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen, they were averaging like over 4 or something. So it's like, yeah, I think we need to go. I'll let you go after it, but
I mean, like I said, I would definitely like to. I think it all signs point to playing more Cole Holcomb, but I don't know that it necessarily means Cole Holcomb and Patrick Queen, because my guess is that teams will. I mean, the thing about that was I think it happened sort of later in the game when they were more or less running out the clock. So it's like a little different kind of telegraphed run, right? Because I feel like if you leave Patrick Queen on the field with, I mean, Cole Holcomb's got ability in coverage, but he's not the speed that that Peyton Wilson has. So I think you open yourselves up to get even more trouble covering the middle of the field, and coverage in the middle of the field. As you well know, how many times have I complained about coverage in the middle of the field being really the thing that kills the Steelers defense, and they've got no answer for it for a long time now.
Yeah.
And here we go again. There are the stuff that's beating them is the same stuff. Like it's Groundhog Day when you watch their defense. This looks an awful lot like, I could point to this game and this game and this game and this game over the last few years. This idea that we got, very poor coverage in the middle of the field, regardless of who's on the field personnel wise, is it been a constant theme. And for just a little while there, we had when Ryan Shazier he's at the peak of his career, which is very short. But when he was at the peak of his career, it seemed like we finally had some coverage in the middle of the field. Even before that, when we had, remind me, Lawrence Timmons. Timmons could at least it could play cover 2, and he could carry the middle of the field.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have sort of lost that vibe. We don't like that kind of linebacker anymore, and so we don't really bring those guys in. We're after these guys that are more sideline to sideline chasers, which is not bad if you're the middle linebacker in a 4-3 defense. But the way this defense is set up, you got to have linebackers like Landon Roberts who are willing to just crash down hard through blockers, mess shit up. That's the kind of like dirty, hard-nosed linebacker play that you need to stop this run. And right now they're kind of too, passive and pretty. And Peyton Wilson, to his credit, tried to be more aggressive coming down on blocks, but at his size and strength, he's not he's not much of an obstacle. And Patrick Queen just doesn't have that in him. He's not an attacking downhill linebacker. He's passive. And so he's halfway in between downhill aggressive and Landon Roberts and, the coverage guy that, like a Fred Warner or something. So yeah, they have talent there. I think that they're just not really utilizing them correctly. And it's mostly about overplaying Patrick Queen.
Yeah. Well, and then, the other thing I'll say about that is it doesn't help when the defensive lineman in front of them is doing absolutely nothing either. Keanu Benton has been a huge disappointment this year, really dating back to the end of last year. He, whatever promise we saw as a rookie, we have not really seen that flash really. In last year, we didn't really see much of it. And then it doesn't look like it's there this year. So I don't know what's wrong there either, but we need to either slide Yaya Black in, let him play some nose tackle, or just go out and sign one of these guys off these big sons of bitches off the street that just says, would you just make sure you occupy this guy and maybe get a little bit of this other guy so my linebackers can flow, because it's the round peg in a square hole thing, it's the circle can fit through the square if it's small enough, but then there's still gaps in there. So we're not covering what we need to get covered with Keanu Benton and nose tackle. So that's the other big issue.
Yeah. I mean, to me, once again, this just goes back to the scheme, I think causes more. This match between the scheme and the personnel is causing them a lot of problems right now. The 3-4 defense, I think, has kind of run its course in the NFL because of the way teams are attacking it right now. The edge, having this edge pressure, is not nearly as deadly to offenses as it was at one point. Yeah. Even if you have a tackle that isn't the best in pass protection, the ball is coming out and things are happening in front of, from the pocket faster that weren't happening. We're taking longer to develop before. So there was time for the TJ Watts to get there. Now it's he can beat his guy clean and not really get to the quarterback in time. There's too much other things he has to watch out for, and the teams are doing, right. I think that's an evolution of the game. Also, when's the last time you remember either of our outside linebackers being in coverage, dropping into coverage and doing some sort of a zone blitz, or, only having 3 guys rush or something replacing them with a blitzing linebacker? We don't do that at all. Right. So if we're not going to do that, if there's no mystery to what the outside guys are doing, then let them put their hand in the dirt and play base with one tech who is not quite a 400-pound nose tackle. But you could have Cam Hayward play the 3 tech. He's a nice, big, hardy, against the run 3 tech, and pair him with a, Yaya Black or one of the other characters as a 1 tech. And I think, you may not get a ton of pass rush out of that interior, but you get, in situations where you feel like you only want to have 4 defenders in the front instead of 5, you're still stopping to run. Right now, they're replacing the nose tackle with either a defensive back to play nickel, or they were actually bringing in a 3rd edge rusher.
Yeah.
Right. So they instead of replacing with a bigger linebacker and better run stopping, or a bigger defensive lineman and better run stopping, they actually replaced him with a smaller defender, like a tweener defender playing in the interior. Those guys, you're asking those guys to do something that's out of character for what they do. So, I look at this. I looked at it, in the playoff game last year against Baltimore. The problem they had in that game was you can't both defend Lamar Jackson running to the edges and defend Derrick Henry with their current setup. And I think they should have seen that. In most years, they'd be like, hey, we're trying to beat the Ravens first and foremost to get, to win our division. And I don't think they really saw that loss and thought, we got to change everything about our philosophy of what we're doing. They seem to have said they were going to do stuff like that, and then they came out and basically showed up with the same defense,
Yeah.
just different faces, more established brand, older players, veterans, But I don't know, man. What would you do schematically with what they have?
Um, man. I mean, if we're gonna play 3-4, one, Yaya's gonna be sliding in the middle. Just give me a big body inside that can at least hold up a block, maybe two if I'm lucky. Because we've got to free up my inside linebackers if we're going to pretend that we're going to play that defense or whatever. But yeah, Yaya would be sliding over to the middle. Benton would be going over to end. See if he can kind of perform, kind of come back to form there, because I think he's an athletic big guy, but I think he's almost lost on the inside because he's not exactly that power rusher, a like power guy that we were hoping he might be. So it's like, yeah, I would slide him out. Maybe he's going to be better against an offensive tackle defending against the run than he has been inside against guards and centers. Like maybe he doesn't quite understand the technique or the leverage there. We could go into the weeds there, but I won't do that. We don't.
I mean, I just feel
folks.
like if they can't stop anybody from running it, they already are having trouble, stopping people passing it. But once again, I don't think it's lack of talent. I think we started at the beginning of the year saying that they improved defensive line. They added a couple of guys. Granted, Harmon hasn't played yet, and probably won't this week either. But in addition, they cleaned it up a little bit on the defensive line anyway, and the linebacker room looks great. And the defensive backfield is they lost Minka, but they seem to have good talent around. But okay, there's a play that's been making the circles this week that was a 2-man pass route that Seattle ran. So it's basically the two outside guys. It's a deep cross for slightly shallower than the other. And I remember, as soon as the play happened, I actually thought of, I think it was last year. It was definitely when Minka Fitzpatrick was there, because it happened twice last year that I can recall. It might have happened twice in the game against Cincinnati. That's the game that popped into my head. And after the game, Minka said, this is what's supposed to happen on that play. That the safety is supposed to jump down to the shorter crosser, and the other two guys are basically playing zones on the outside to prevent exactly what happened. But then I realized it was exactly the same play as the Jets play the previous week. It's like, somebody looked at that on film and was like, oh, if you're going to defend it like that, we're going to kill you with that. So they literally only ran two guys in coverage. The Jets at least had a token tight end drift out in the flat or whatever. Seattle kept everybody in max protect and just had two guys run a pass route, and it still defeated the Steelers for a touchdown despite three veteran defenders in the back. That is scheme. That's coaching. That's how you're using your players. That is not preparing them. If they just faced that and had the same problem in the previous week, did you not go over the film and explain what you're supposed to do?
So I'm glad you brought that up, because I saw that making the rounds too, that double deep crosser is what I think it was called or whatever. So Terrell Austin was interviewed about that play, and he said, I don't have the exact quote, but I am effing pissed that it happened because we effing covered it during the week.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this in defense of his players. I'll bet you, I don't know for a fact. I've never gone back and examined everything about Darius Slay's career, or for that matter, Jalen Ramsey. But I'll bet you Darius Slay has extremely rarely in his entire career, I'm talking about high school, college, and the pros, played a deep third zone. He's a man-to-man defender if ever there was one.
Run, dude.
Really good at it in the course of his career. And most of those guys, I played with guys. I played with a guy who played in the league when he was, 19 years old. And he literally told me he had never played zone defense before. So he's in college, playing college ball, and up to that point had never played in a zone defense of any kind. Right? So he's never been asked to even think about it or react to it or learn how to do it. So I just, I feel like you're asking guys to play quarters or 3-deep zone, as our cornerbacks are doing frequently now. You see a lot of Jalen Ramsey in the off third. You see Slay and these two plays that got, touchdowns against us. So yeah, I think you've got man-to-man defenders and they're hesitant to play man-to-man with them. They were getting killed in man-to-man as well. So, but it's like that off man coverage when you don't really have coverage linebacker support from underneath and deep safety support because he's not playing 30 yards off the ball. And you can play man in those situations because you're always working your man to the sideline or to your help. And right now they're playing outside leverage, when they do play off man, and they're letting receivers just run in cuts and slants. They could do that all day long. A professional NFL team is going to defeat that 90% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you'd play to your player strengths. But we could go. This rabbit hole's never ending.
Yeah, sorry, and we've spent a half an hour talking about it. I know, but
no, I wasn't criticizing. It's just like that's how far we can go with what we don't like about the current scheme, what we're not doing with current players.
Like, what are you doing in training camp? This is, you may not be able to hit each other the way you want to hit. And you may not be able to tackle in a run game. Like run game fits, I can see that being a thing that these days in the NFL, it takes an NFL team a little while to get into the groove because you just don't have that many reps against it coming into the season together. You got new faces. Like, all right, I'll buy all that. But like pass coverage and schemes and walkthroughs and like these are when we make this coverage call, this is what you got to do. They do that all day long. That's the kind of stuff they can practice on their own time in the off season even. So yeah, it's really, that to me is the most disturbing thing. You got veteran players in the secondary who can't figure out how to execute what they're being asked to do for whatever reason.
Yeah, and since we're on the topic of some veteran players, we had quite a few not practiced today. Just go ahead and hit the injury report while we're kind of talking about this high-priced defense.
The Patriots injury report, but I didn't see the Steelers. So
yeah. So again, this is as of Thursday, but DK Metcalf did not practice. That was another veteran day off. I don't know why he's getting veteran days off when he can't catch balls during the game. I'd be like, get your ass out there. You dropped 3 fucking balls again. Sorry, excuse my language, but this is the type of week we got, okay? You got to roll with it a little.
Yeah.
The good news is Darius Slay practiced in full, but that might have been just another returning from veteran rest type of day. However, the big 3, Joey Porter Jr., Deshaun Elliott, Alex Highsmith, all did not practice again. Highly unlikely any of them are available for this weekend, unfortunately.
Did Derek Harmon practice in full?
So he had a light practice today. I did see some clips. He was running around with a big brace on that knee.
I think everything that the subtext of all the conversations that Tomlin and others have talked about him this week, that is no chance he's coming back because they're like, he's a rookie. We can't rush him back into action when he's not 100%. I said at the time he got hurt that I would even have said maybe after the bye he comes back. I just feel like they traditionally in this situation, they don't rush guys back that are young. It's one thing if you're a veteran and it happens mid-season and the stretch run is happening, but this early in the season, I can just tell you their mindset is so risk averse about stuff like this that they want them to be fully 100%, totally ready, chomping at the bit, and then they throw them in,
Yeah.
So I think it's probably 10% he plays this week, 50-50 next week, and then 100% for after the bye is what it would, that would be my guess. But none of that is good.
That's what I'd do.
Yeah, the thing is, you can blame the injuries. Alex Highsmith has played pretty well when he's been in there.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely a step up from the guys, the depth guys behind him. But yeah, this injury for him is maybe as much of an impact as anything because Loudermilk, you're not really missing anything. Slay looks like he's going to come back. Even Porter, yes, they miss him. They would rather have him and probably would feel comfortable playing more man coverage with him in there. But yeah, you can't blame injuries for what's going on with them. The New England injuries we don't really know. I think they practice light anyway. Like, in other words, I don't think New England is a team that kills themselves during the week. They spend more time on the install of what the plan is that's a very Patriots Belichickian way of doing things. But yeah, I think it's there. Christian Gonzalez looks like he's going to play. He's had 2 light practices in a row, or limited practices.
Yeah.
But he is actually doing reps with the starters, who are all basically doing the same limited practice. So the sense is that he's going to play, coming back off a hamstring. He hasn't suited up even in camp since like the second week of camp, but apparently he's going to play, which is a huge deal for them. And their pass rusher, Chason, and also Marte Mapu, were all in that, like, weren't they practicing, but it looks like they're all going to play. So I don't know. It's we can't think of this matchup as being like, oh, the Steelers are definitely superior to the Patriots. So, if they just play their game, they're going to win.
Yeah. And then
I think we passed that stage. That ship has sailed this season, right?
Yeah. And then on kind of another injury note, Patrick Queen kind of injured an oblique, but he has put together 2 full practices. So I'm guessing that was just kind of a game day injury, kind of just something you have to fight and duke it out with. And then unfortunately, it sounds like Max Sharping, a backup offensive lineman, has had a significant knee injury that will keep him out the rest of the year. I was reading that last night. I haven't seen anything on that further yet, because it's probably not too noteworthy since it's a backup, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see another move probably after this weekend, if I had to guess, since they signed a bunch of guys the other day and did nothing with him. Might be waiting to see kind of the scope of.
You didn't mention the signing this week that's going to lead to the Super Bowl. DeMarvin Leal got re-signed.
Oh, that's right.
The roster. How could you miss that? I mean, I don't know. Like, I imagine that their thinking is that he is gonna, rather than moving Benton over, if Derek Harmon doesn't go, Leal might be, the first guy lining up at defensive end, or second guy behind. I'm sorry, what is he's new this year? Played.
Yaya Black, or
no, the
one of the 2 guys whose names I can't pronounce.
The poly guy, and I can't remember his name right now. I'm sorry,
Daniel Ekawale, and
that's it, Ekawale.
Estimi Atozawozu or something. No offense, fellas. No offense, but
there's not that their names are difficult to pronounce. It's just difficult to remember the combination of syllables needed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this Leal thing, like, I just don't know. Like, if you're having problems defending the run, it just feels like you need a certain kind of guy. I'm not sure that they even have that guy. And even Juwan Bentley, like, apparently is totally not in football shape.
Yeah.
So from what I heard, it's like they're going to, quote, practice him into game shape. So I wouldn't expect to see him this weekend. So you still got this kind of like, lack of depth in a play. You're going to see a lot of Logan Lee, and you're going to see a lot of Ekawale, but it's like, I'm just not sure that's really going to solve your problems,
Yeah.
Ultimately,
did y'all see?
Yeah.
Did y'all see Peyton Wilson get laid out on that ISO play?
Well, did you see him? He got laid out so much he went right into Patrick Queen's lap, and he also got knocked down.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that makes you real inspired for an upcoming Ravens game, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait.
Oh boy. We have a linebacker that can't take on a fullback. Recipe for success.
Yeah.
No, I do think the guy that'll really save our run game is whoever's running around the locker room and could take out Isaiah Loudermilk and Keanu Benton's knees, so we sign anyone else and get them on the field. That's who could save our run game, is getting those 2 off of the field. I don't think I've ever noticed Isaiah Loudermilk a single time, except when he's getting blown 5 yards off the ball.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever noticed. And then I go, damn, who just got blown off the ball? And it's always Isaiah Loudermilk. It's always him. It's like he can't even play that much. It's like every time he is in, he's getting blown off the ball. I'm sorry. I've been sitting on this one. Like, I really wanted to get on the call for this. Hey, for someone who doesn't play much, you really notice him an awful lot 5 yards down the field.
Well, and he's also getting rolling around on the ground, knocking his teammates over.
He's not even losing with dignity. He's not anchoring and just going down. He's getting leveled They're using him as a broom. He's cleaning up the turf. Like I know all those turf fields. He's picking those little black rubber pellets out of like the inside of his pads because he's just rolling around on the ground every time he's in. It's absurd.
These are the
You might
days
want to
where,
introduce our guest because we have this like disembodied voice that's joined the show.
yeah, Korey Karbowsky has joined the show, folks, in spectacular fashion. I
Yeah,
might
Corey,
add.
I think coaching is starting to affect your personality, bro, on the air.
Oh no, I'm sorry. This is coming off the heels. We had three interior. This is from the heart. We had three interior D linemen go down with injury this week, and then played against a team whose JV coach is the varsity O line coach, and they ran the ball 49 times on us with strictly power, ISO, and wedge. And so watching D linemen get blown off the ball it's real fresh on the mind. And I don't know, it's something that Isaiah Loudermilk's name came up, and it was like a bat signal for me to get that rant off. It is about Isaiah Loudermilk. It's not this is nothing to do with my team. It baffles me how every time someone's getting blown off the ball, it's him. It's always him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It continued and was in some ways worse after he got knocked out of the game.
I know.
So it's not, I mean, it isn't just a him problem. It's that whole, I mean, that the depth along the defensive line is really being exposed. And even when they get Harmon back, they're still thin, even with that. Yeah. Even if he works out as well as, you know, the most optimistic people think he might, it's still pretty ragged. Kano Benton isn't really made to be in the middle. So, okay, you know, on the rare occasions you're going to have a nose tackle in or try to go heavy in, you know, near the goal line or something. At least you got, you're black, but you know, you beyond those three, like anything happens to one of them and you're toasty. So yeah, and the thing is they're equally bad against the pass. Apparently they're 27th in terms of like the meaningful defensive statistics of like, you know, EPA and, you know, like the points allowed per play and whatever. They're 27th against the run and 27th against the pass.
Well, you know how you always talk about like, and I saw one play which kind of encapsulated it for me. You know how you always talk about, oh, you know, they're not making it easy on their quarterback. You know, they're not give them some easy throws, rhythm throws, you know, little quick run game, keep the box sound, you know, all this stuff, right? And I see Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey are having to run man-to-man on these two crossers. It was a touchdown. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I feel like, and it's, I don't know, it just kind of triggers something. It's like, I never feel like the Steelers make it harder on their opponent to do something defensively. They just try and roll the ball out, and they just try and see what shakes. It feels like there's very little game planning that's like going into this. It's just like, hey, we like our dudes, which you better because you paid them how much money, right? Right. But we like our dudes. We're just going to go out there and play sound football. There's no, you know, moving the QB. It's like other than when we play the Ravens, I will say it feels like there's a designated game plan that we've had stirred up there for a couple years now. But not every other team,
not that it's good, but yes, we have a different plan for this.
Yeah, it's like you can tell they're trying something. But every other game, it's like you can't tell me that they're really attempting to make things harder. It's like it's how do you end up Jalen Ramsey trailing a 4-4 corner? It's like this was a guy we were talking about moving the safety for God's sake.
Well, but we were discussing this earlier. You know, this Steelers have had problems with this particular play for quite a long time, and got beat just in the Jets game with the same exact play call. And the Minkah Fitzpatrick, I remember distinctly when it happened this time. I went back to last year and I thought to myself, I remember Minkah talk about this that the adjustment they're supposed to make on that coverage is that the safety is supposed to crash down on the shortest crosser, and the other two guys are supposed to play basically deep zones on that play. They're supposed to not carry across the middle. And on both the play against the Jets and against the Seahawks this week, and I think, if I recall correctly, it was twice against Cincinnati last year, the same play call. So obviously somebody saw this weakness on film, and despite the fact that none of the three guys who were involved these last 2 weeks were there last year doing it, you know, they saw something of like, well, this is how they're going to play that pattern, and this is how we can beat them. And you basically got, you know, two man-to-man coverage guys who are older in Ramsey and Slay, and you know their all mindset is man coverage, so they carried. but really they're supposed to stop at the midline and go back and play zone. And as I was saying to Jeremy earlier before you joined us, I don't think either of those guys is really that, had that much experience playing zone. They're never asked to do that. So they don't have necessarily the instincts for it, or like the way to make a mid-play adjustment. Like mid-play adjustments are hard when you're in coverage in the NFL. Like it happens super fast, and you have to have like the reaction time that a quarterback has in the pocket, with a read. So I don't blame them for not being able to just roll out there and do something different. But yeah, that's it. They had two guys in the route, Korey. Like, that this week. The Jets had like a token guy underneath to distract a little bit, but basically we had three defenders on only two guys in the route, and we did not manage to stop that play.
And my kind of thought on it, and I know you guys were about to go into the Patriots game, so I won't be too hard on this, but it's like it's something that we're saying a lot in, it's kind of holding coaches accountable, which I think is very applicable to the Steelers nowadays. It's like you either coach something that way or you allow it to happen. It's like you really can't blame the players in these situations, because you are either coaching them to play it that way, or when it happens, you are allowing it to continue to happen. Like that's the thing. Like, it's not to say a player can't ever get beat or a player can never do this, but there's always an answer. Like, there's always an answer defensively to something. As much as there is an offense, there's an answer defensively too. And I think it's just to the point where it's like you said, this is a year after year problem. It's so negative. Last week was so jolly, or the week before.
Yeah,
Whatever it was. It's like you either coach something that way or you allow it to happen. It's year after year when we're seeing the same thing, the same U-shaped offense, the same issues defensively. You're either coaching it to happen, you're coaching it and how it's happening, or you are allowing it to happen year after year after year, both of which is a failure.
Yeah.
Like, that's what causes coaching turnover, except there is very little.
Yeah. And thing is, they've fully bought into the strategy of, we are just going to try to not make any mistakes. I mean, I think that was the thing about the reaction to the Caleb Johnson play from Tomlin's point of view, is that, when you're coaching to like, we are not going to make any mistakes and we're going to wait for the other team to make mistakes, and then we're going to take advantage of that. And that's going to result in us making the plays at the end of the game to win. When that's your strategy, you make any kind of mistake, like a grievous error like that, then that's like you've defeated the entire game plan. There's no adjustment. There's no coming back from that, So I think you're absolutely right. It's like if you're only coaching to not make mistakes, you're not coaching.
You're trying to play within a small margin for both teams. You want to bring, even if you're way better than a team, that's why we see all the losses we do. Not that other teams don't get upset, but that's why we see the dumb losses, because when you're always playing to control clock and to just wear a team down, your margins with the turnover, with a quick defensive, screw up where they score, anything where it doesn't go according to plan, your margin that was already small shrinks even more. And now you got to be perfect, which is a lot to ask. So that's the problem when you try and play within these small margins. It's just not a recipe for. It's a recipe to go positive in a 500 record, because you were drafting pretty solid for years and you have a coach who can get a little more out of his players, but it's never going to be a recipe to go and win 4 straight at the end of the year, 5 straight at the end of the year, 6 straight at the end of the year, when you're trying to go in on a run. And so that's kind of the issue, where when you play within these margins, at some point you're going to get caught. It's like you can only flip a coin. Might land on heads twice, might land on heads 3 times. They never had a fucking losing season. We've been so close to 500 how many times? It's like, okay, cool. But that coin that's landing on heads can only land on heads 2 times in a row, 3 times in a row, before you're going to get caught. Yeah. And that's what you're dealing with these small margins where you're trying to keep everything tight.
Yeah, well, I think teams are also attacking the Steelers differently. They're being more aggressive facing the Steelers than they had been, because they understand the strategy. If the other team isn't going to do anything aggressive, and just wait for you to make mistakes, then the best thing you can do is just try to execute a bunch of plays that are more aggressive, rather than being passive about, run, and then try to make a play on 3rd down. And I think that both of these opponents have made the most of that. And I'll let it go at that. And Jeremy, you can take back over. Poor Jeremy lost his control of the show.
I know you're good. Honestly, that conversation kind of fuels into some matchups we need to watch, against the Patriots. What are we going to potentially do different? What's a battle to look out for? Not honestly, the biggest one for me right now is rookie left tackle Wil Campbell against Nick Herbig, because in the pre-draft process, Wil Campbell was quoted, as one of those all-time great offensive line quips about, I enjoy watching the joy of the other guy's face leave in front of me, when I play, that type of thing or whatever. So it's like, I know teams run away from TJ Watt's side. Okay, that's fine. Now Alex Highsmith won't be available, it very much sounds like. So Nick Herbig is going to have to stand up in the run game. But we know he can rush the passer decently well. He's a very quick cat, and that might be one area where he has a little advantage on Wil Campbell if he can get him sitting down and a little late out of his step or whatnot. But as far as the run game goes, Campbell is a pretty decent blocker. So that I think that's going to be a very telling matchup to see whether the Steelers really can stop the Patriot ground attack, which features two pretty good running backs. Ramondre Stevenson, has always been a guy I've liked. A big guy who can run, tote the rock. And then they just drafted Travion Henderson. I'm scared to death of Henderson's speed hitting the second level, because I don't think we have any chance of stopping him if he gets that far with kind of how our secondary and tackling is looking. Not to mention, I think through 2 weeks, the Steelers have the worst missed tackle mark at 18.9% of missed tackles of ones they attempt. So I'm very concerned about the Campbell and the Nick Herbig matchup. So Will, I'll throw it to you for the next.
By the way, Antonio Gibson is their number 3. He's faster than Trevion Henderson. So
yeah,
they got dudes. He scored a touchdown on a kick return last week. But I think, the thing I'm struck by looking at these two teams, if you look at their match, you're trying to look for a matchup, is I think I'm very unconvinced that the Steelers have a talent advantage over New England. I think New England, top to bottom, they maybe have the stars at the top.
Yeah.
But depth, overall their roster is better than Pittsburgh's roster. I don't know that they're incredibly well coached, but that's not a bar you have to hit too high to outdo the Steelers. So I think that they have, slightly better coaching, slightly better talent top to bottom. And it's just the question about this, the matchup really is, can Pittsburgh stars, and by that I mean TJ Watt and Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf, Jalen Ramsey, can those guys make enough plays to overcome the rest of the roster not being as good? That to me is the question of this game. And, you start looking at the guys they have there. New England has got a unspectacular name-wise compared to the Steelers' name recognition value. But they got some players, man. They have in interior guys. They lead the league in sacks, first of all, with names like Milton Williams is actually tremendous as a sort of like a 5-tech or interior pass rusher. And they get a lot of mileage out of guys that aren't super high profile or who aren't 20 sack a year guys. They're getting a lot of pressure. They get Christian Gonzalez back probably this week, and so their secondary, which has been a problem, maybe gets a little bit better. But yeah, they got Robert Spillane playing linebacker, who what we all saw what he can do. There are some weaknesses, but for the most part, he's a pretty good player. I don't know. To me, if I had to name a matchup, I'd say that their safeties against our tight ends, I feel like is a really good matchup. They've got Jalen Hawkins from Cal, who I saw him. I remember seeing him in the NFLPA game, and I hadn't really noticed him in the draft process before then, but I just thought there's a guy that's already getting everybody lined up in an all-star game. It's like a coach on the field type who can really play. And they paired him with Craig Woodson. I want to say his former Cal teammate at strong safety. So they have guys that know each other and communicate very well, and they've made a lot of plays. So anyway, I don't know. I'm interested to see what you guys think about the matchups. I don't know. Those star guys, who are they going to match up against? Is it going to be Christian Gonzalez and DK Metcalf? I don't know.
Yeah, Corey, what do you think, bud?
Yeah. It's not really a matchup, but I do want to shout out my guy Julian Ashby, the long snapper for the
Oh
Patriots.
yeah.
Me and Julian went on the we were both two of the bigger Southern long snappers, like bigger name in recruiting for some of these like Southern schools. And so me and him actually did a lot of snapping together. He's from Georgia. But so we both looked like Middle Tennessee. We were both looking at Georgia Southern. He ended up going Furman when I went to Southeastern. And now he didn't get injured and played the extra 2 years that he got. He ended up transferring to Vanderbilt.
Mm.
But it was kind of funny. We talked all through college because Furman and Southeastern were always top in their special teams units,
Mm.
top special teams units in the FCS. His big thing, the reason why he gets a shout out, is he came out of high school about a buck 60.
Wow.
And he at Furman, he kind of bulked up, kind of got to around 190, got to Vanderbilt and kind of made a commitment out of, hey, I actually want to try and make something out of this, try and become a pro snapper. Think he got all the way up to 230, 235, and then end up getting drafted. So for being a 160-pound long snapper coming out of high school, it's a pretty phenomenal story that you go from, imagine telling that to some random 160-pound kid coming out that, hey, yeah, you're going to get drafted in the 6th round of the NFL draft. So shout out to my guy. Still talk to him. Yeah, no, Will, I was just going to piggyback on what you said. Like you look at that defense, you go, oh, damn. Like they may not have TJ Watt, but they got a lot of dudes who would start for us. Like they had a lot of dudes a little bit better than what we got. Like they're just very stout the whole way across. Offensively, kind of reminds me of us too, except I'd rather have not the biggest Drake May fan, but I'd rather have Drake May than Aaron Rodgers at this stage of their career.
Oh yeah.
But one kind of like notable receiver, then two kind of just supportive guys, solid tight ends, but nothing spectacular. We can't act like our tight ends are anything more than solid. I mean, it's based on stats, based on eye test. Then they got a pretty solid running back room. This feels. I tend to agree with Will. I would rather have their roster. However, the coaching that's where the only thing I may sway is that the coaching may come into play here simply because it's if the rosters are pretty similar, that's where coaching can kind of take over, and this seems like the kind of game where the Steelers might just grit it out and win. For a matchup, I'll just call out. I'll call out. You got the Christian Gonzalez one, which was the big one I was looking at. You can't really call Marcus Jones versus Roman Wilson a notable matchup because is that really notable? I'm gonna go Milton Williams on the interior. That's just got to be Milton Williams has been a pretty freaky rusher this year. He's hitting like side steps. He looks like he's playing basketball. Like he's hitting all sorts of crazy stuff on the interior. And I like our interior guys, but it seems like whenever they have a dude, and Milton Williams is playing like a dude right now, it kind of goes off the tracks. It doesn't really seem like we do well with kind of helping in situations like that. Now, granted, the other side does a lot to make sure that doesn't happen, but you got to figure something out. I do have to go. I only on here for about 30 minutes, so I'll give my score prediction now.
Barry,
I'm gonna call this let's call it a 18-17 Steelers victory. Don't know how we get to 18, but I've got a pretty good track record of predicting weird scores like that, and somehow the Steelers end up at that number, even if the other team ends up beating us or something. So
it's
I'm
only
gonna call it that.
field goals. So
Oh, well then I feel even better. That math makes sense. I feel great about that now. But all right, fellas, thanks for having me on even for the limited time.
All right, thanks for jumping in, Korey. We always appreciate you coming on and lending your expertise, especially that Loudermilk rant. That was class A Korey Karbowsky shit right there.
In the history of the show, for sure.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, Korey. But yeah, he made a great point there, just building off the Milton Williams thing. Our guys have had real trouble when they come across a guy that really knows what he's doing as far as like interior pass rush that can plan and just honestly, I expect Milton Williams to really wreck very non-existent run game at this
Yeah,
point.
well, Seumalo, I think, has had and people, obviously focused on Broderick Jones and maybe even Patano a little bit, but I think Seumalo's had some trouble as well, and especially with a guy that's an active big guy, not just like not just a space eater. So yeah, I expect that to be a very tough matchup. But I mean, the thing is, that gives me hope that the Steelers offense won't be completely shut down by the Patriots pass rush. Is just that they've been so bad in pass coverage. So they've been equally bad to what the Steelers have been in pass coverage. So there's, I think there's at least a decent possibility that you're going to see some points in this game.
Gotcha. No, I have to admit, no one else really stuck out as far as matchups go. We've kind of already covered the covering the middle of the field thing. We're gonna have to watch out for their tight ends a little bit. Patriots has historically used their tight ends in the passing game. Hunter Henry is still around the league. Still remember him when he was coming out of Arkansas, thinking, "Yep, there's going to be a great one." And sure enough, he's been in the league like forever now. Austin Hooper is still around, a guy that's familiar with Vrabel, so no surprise there. No one in their wide receiver room really scares the shit out of me, but
actually kind of I like a little bit of their wide receiver depth. Like Kayshon Boutte right now has been one of the top receivers in the league through the first 2 weeks. Now, granted, it's only 2 weeks, but I feel like that has sort of paid off for them. That was a little bit of a gamble, right? 6th round or something they took him.
Yeah.
So I feel like that is after 2 years, it's finally really paid off for them. And I feel like Kyle Williams eventually will supplant, Mac Hollins. But, for the moment, you got what's left of Stephon Diggs and you got, Mac Hollins, who's the kind of guy that's always given the Steelers trouble in terms of a possession receiver that's going to get his against any kind of soft coverage at all. He's going to get some room because he can make room with his body. So yeah, I think they have enough guys in the passing game, but much like the previous 2 teams the Steelers have played, I think that the Patriots are going to look to dominate in the run game, and they have the offensive line and they got the running backs to do it. So it's just a question of, will the Steelers fear their passing game enough to not just stack up against the run? They got to be able to have an answer to it. So the other team comes out and stacks up with 9 guys in the box, then you got to have answers to what you're going to do. But yeah, I don't know. Like it strikes me as I need the Steelers defense to prove to me that they can hold a team under 30 before I commit to it. Even last week, they only gave up 24 because there was a touchdown given up by special teams. But I have a feeling that if Seattle had needed another touchdown at the end of the game, they might have gotten to 30. So, something drastic would have to change for that not to happen this week.
Yeah, and then the last thing I'll say is, you got to watch out for Drake May and his legs. He's a guy that's been known to run the ball, and we've historically struggled with quarterbacks who can run the ball. I mean, just look at all of our times at attempting to corral Lamar Jackson for Christ's sake. So, not that he's that type of athlete or whatever, but he is more than good enough to make teams pay. So, even if we do go man on some things, it's like, May is the type of quarterback where it's like, well, if everyone clears out man, he can just take it and duck and run. So it'll be an interesting game. It'll be a very interesting game here. Just with how the Steelers fare, it kind of after a week of where shit hit the fan. So how does this team, respond? I think that's the biggest thing. I think Aaron Rodgers was quoted during the week, "Oh, well, how do you guys respond back?" And he was like, "Well, winning." And it's like, well, no shit, Aaron, but it's like we need to see some like tangible stuff on the field that shows we've taken it up a notch in several areas. But believe it or not, as much as we talk about the Steelers and who they're playing, there's other games happening throughout the week.
Shocking.
Yeah, I know, right? And the other thing that is amazing is there's already like 5 backup quarterbacks starting in the NFL this week after 3 weeks. Like, it's crazy the amount of backups. And a little of that is speculative. We don't know if Jaden Daniels is going to tough it out, if they're going to shut him down for a game, whatever. But there's some very interesting games. And I go off on that route because the first game I'm going to bring up has 2 backup quarterbacks that are going to be playing. One, the Steelers are very familiar with. His name is Jake Browning. He's leading the Cincinnati Bengals up north to take on the Carson Wentz-led Minnesota Vikings. Currently at the moment, the Vikings are at home. They are favored by 3. Will, I'll let you start out with what do you think will happen there?
It'll probably be an entertaining game. I think Carson Wentz is better than what the starting quarterback in Minnesota was doing so far. So Minnesota, was pretty good last year with a competent quarterback. So I think they'll be in this game. But Jake Browning has been very good in his starts in his career in the NFL. He's a very limited number of starts, but he's been pretty good in them. So I kind of think that Cincinnati with Jake Browning doesn't miss too much on offense, and Minnesota's offense right now struggles enough that Cincinnati will have maybe just a little bit more in this game. So I like Cincinnati to win outright.
Yeah, I kind of in the same boat. And honestly, it's not because of Cincinnati's offense, it's because of Cincinnati's defense, ironically enough. They have taken kind of a step up. They still have ways to go. Don't get me wrong. I hear about it weekly because my sister and brother-in-law are in Cincinnati and they're Bengals fans. So I hear about it all the time. But Shamar Stewart has looked very good when he has played their first rounder, that was going through the should I sign, should I not sign type of stuff. He finally did. But it really feels like that front seven is really starting to up their play. And that will be the big difference because Minnesota's offensive line is not good right now. And it's because they're missing players, don't get me wrong. But they're not playing well. And that's why McCarthy was getting hit like every other play. I think Cincinnati has a realistic chance of kind of repeating what happened. Oh, who did the Vikings play? Atlanta? Was it Atlanta? Yeah, Atlanta this past week where they were really putting the hurt to McCarthy. But at the same time, the Vikings have a pretty good defense within their own. So I expect a low-scoring game. The over-under this is 42.5 right now. It's a very tough line, but it would not surprise me if this is one of those 19-17, each team has to settle for like 5 field goals apiece type of game, where it's like we might move the ball just enough to let our kickers win this ball game. So I like the Bengals in that case. Well, like I said, I feel like it's going to be a 19-17 Bengals cover and win outright. So I'm with you on that. But fun little story there. One of the bigger games of the week, big NFC matchup, very possibly an NFC conference championship type matchup. The Los Angeles Rams are headed to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Eagles are at home, favored by 3.5. I like the Eagles here, even though I have publicly, pumped the Rams as one of my teams. I just like to root for that. I like their offensive system. They've got some fun guys to watch on defense. I just think being in Philadelphia, the West Coast traveling to the East Coast, historically, that's never been a good thing for the West Coast teams. But I just think the Eagles, even though things don't look great all the time, I think they have the recipe to win and grind out this game in the running game more so than anything, because they really have not passed the ball out all that much. Just ask A.J. Brown and see what he thinks. But I think the Eagles have more than enough to win this game, even though I expect it to be a fun matchup. But I expect Eagles to win. Very close game, but I just think they're going to do just enough to make things a little too tough on the Rams. So what are you thinking?
Well, I think it's a good style mismatch. I think the Rams are very close to, if not the team. Well, they're one of the teams in the league. They're not the top team in the how quickly they run plays on offense and how many offensive plays they run. I think the New Orleans Saints are number one in those categories, but the Rams are still a team. I think that more like the Showtime Los Angeles Lakers in terms of who would like to play tempo-wise. And Philadelphia leads the league in the slowest tempo. So they are basically milking the clock and possessions and just trying to absolutely wear you down, keep your defense on the field for a long time, keep your offense off the field. And if you can finish drives the way that they've able to finish drives, and it doesn't help when you can line your offensive linemen up in the neutral zone illegally and probably even false start on most of those short yardage plays. But, they've developed this formula, and until somebody figures out how to stop them, they are going to grind away possessions. And I think that will just keep the Rams offense off the field enough that, at some point you get into the catch-up mode, and then Philly's defense will come after you. So it's a good formula unless you can, get ahead of them and then grind them down. Very few teams in the league are equipped to do that against Philly.
Yep. So Eagles, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I'm just saying it's like too many factors. As long as Philly's on this run, with their formula working so well and they're healthy enough, like I said, it's going to take somebody with a spectacular effort to defeat them.
Yeah, it's funny. I was listening to ESPN radio today when I was running out to get lunch, and the Rich Eisen show had Dean Blandino on, and he has basically said that he is done with the tush push. He says it's impossible to officiate, realistically, because you can't see anything. And I truly think this might be the last year we see the tush push. I think there's finally going to be enough other teams that say enough of this and enough pressure from outside that we see the end of the tush push era in Philly. But not to derail.
It's football, but it's football. But you look at the way that their offensive line lines up, like how far the line is behind the center on every play, except for the tush push where they're literally up next to him. This is the problem. There's a reason that's illegal in the NFL and has been for 100 years, because it's too much of an advantage. If you basically just line up your whole team in a wedge, over top of the football, the defenders have no chance to penetrate or to even stand that up, like for a 6-inch, 12-inch play or whatever. So, I think if they just cleaned it up in terms of how it's officiated, it may not stop it, but it sort of surely make it more of a coin flip kind of a play versus now it's like, it's incredible if they don't get a first down on it, right? It happens like once or twice a year. So I just feel like if the offensive linemen's the front of their helmet or any part of their body is within the ball, and I'm talking about front end and rear end of the ball, like that ball, the only person that's allowed to be in there is the center. So anybody, the rest of the offensive line, if they encroach upon that, it should be a penalty. And they're doing it every time they do the tush push.
They are.
Every time. And one of the reasons other teams are not as good at the tush push is because they don't line up illegally. And now I guess this year they've begun actually false starting a little bit as well, like starting before the ball moves. So, yes, it's very difficult to see. That part I get. But I think that seeing the ball and understanding when players are lined up over the ball, that is something, having been that person in football in officiating, that is something you can see. It's not that difficult to see when people are offside. It is more difficult when there are no lines to match up with on the field. But the NFL has so many lines and so many things that are aligned that it's pretty easy to tell when guys are over top of it. So, like if you're officiating looking straight at the ball down the field and you can't see part of the ball because somebody is blocking you, it's a penalty. It should be called every time. But until that happens, Philly's going to keep winning attrition games because they've taken the Mike Tomlin sort of an offense and paired it with, some creativity and some, pushing the rules to their absolute limits. So, chapeau to them. But yeah, part of that is they're getting advantages they shouldn't be getting. They don't need, frankly, to be successful. They're still going to be playing a good team if their offense doesn't line up offside.
Yeah. But let me get back to it. But I just thought that was an interesting thing since we were talking about the Eagles.
Sorry.
It's been a very hot topic, here with it almost got eliminated this offseason. It was very close to being gone this offseason. So I think it'll be gone next offseason. I'll be shocked if it's still here. Even though the NFL will hate taking points off the board. I think it's going to come to it. But there's some other great games. Big AFC West matchup. The Broncos are heading to LA to take on the Chargers. Chargers are favored by 3. I'll let you start.
I'm sorry, it's the Chargers and who?
Chargers and Broncos. Chargers are at home, favored by 3.
Well, the Broncos have really struggled on offense so far this season, and the Chargers look like a well-oiled machine. So, yeah, it's it's definitely a game the Chargers should win. And I picked them to win. Like if you're a better, you're way better off picking them to win. But it's a division game, and especially a game for Denver. It means a lot more to Denver because they are been on the schneid kind of. So, you put a division game together with a team that nobody thinks they can win, who really needs the win to salvage their season. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Denver finds a way to win this game. It's hard for me to believe I'm saying that, but I think as good as the Chargers have looked, that division games are tough. They're always going to be close.
Well, maybe I should have gone first.
Sorry, sorry.
Well, I mean, and one of the big reasons is, don't get me wrong, I love what the Chargers have done on offense. I think it's absolutely fantastic what Justin Herbert's been able to do this year. Like, this is what we've been expecting of Justin Herbert, to look this good, to run the offense, to make incredible throws. However, Khalil Mack, horrific elbow injury. I saw that live and thought, oh shit, he's done. Like, he's out for a while. So he was placed on IR. I know, let's see here.
Who are they? They've lost Bosa on the offseason, so I've been wondering.
Yeah, Bosa's in Buffalo. Yeah, Bosa's in Buffalo. And let's see here. They signed Cleveland Farrell to help with.
Big help.
Yeah, so I'm kind of with you. I think as good as the Chargers have looked on offense, I think they're about to take a step back on defense because of Khalil Mack. That man has been a terror for years. I don't think will ever be in the Hall of Fame, but he is always going to be in the Hall of Very Good, and a name that people are always going to remember. Yeah. So losing him is a big deal. So
really, your point is well taken, because the rest of their pass rushers are bad. Bud Dupree's playing poorly as he's ever played in the NFL. So yeah, it's not like they have other guys to step up. Sorry, I'd interrupt you.
No, you're good. I mean, Bud Dupree is going to play a lot more. Another name we know here very well, the Steelers. But yeah, I just think that's just going to have more of an adverse effect. So I think if that can help the Broncos offense kind of get ignited. And let's face it, the Broncos are one really bad special teams penalty away from being 2-0 coming into this game, against the Colts here in town. So I just think they're going to find a way to win. Kind of like you said, I think it'll be a very close game. The offense gets going just a little bit more because the Chargers don't quite have the juice to rush the pass as they have had. So I like the Broncos here. Again, it's only a 3-point thing, so everyone's expecting close game. I think the Broncos are going to be pissed that they should have been 2-0 coming into this game, minus a really dumb penalty at the end. So let's see here. Do two more real quick. Cardinals at 49ers. 49ers are at home, favored by 2.5. I think the 49ers kind of find a way to win this one. I'm not exactly sure about the stats for Brock Purdy, but I just think they're
Mac Jones still, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think they're despite all that, I still think that they're just the better coach team, the slightly better team. Kyler Murray again had a really dumb quote, something about Marvin Harrison will get his targets when he gets his targets. It's like, man, how is there still that shit going on? It just kind of feels like the Cardinals are just kind of holding water until Kyler Murray sinks or swims. I don't know. I'm not really sure. But until that happens, I like the 49ers. They're extremely well coached. I think they'll find a way to win this ball game.
Yeah, I haven't heard about Kittle being in or out. That's somebody
I think he's on IR. I think
so he's out for a while now. Yeah. Close game. I think Arizona's one of those teams that can fool you into thinking they're good because they'll hang around and whatever. And Kyler Murray is, still a magician. He'll still make him put some plays for you. Yeah, I felt that Mac Jones was not a huge drop off in that offense, and therefore, as much as maybe you might have thought he would be. So I do like San Francisco to win a close game.
Ironically enough, back when Mac Jones got drafted, I thought they should have drafted him 3rd overall instead of Trey Lance. So it's funny how he's in San Fran, despite where he got drafted and where he is now. But anyway,
but they're thinking they wish they had not drafted either.
Yeah, right. All right, one last big game before we get to ours. Lions are heading to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. This is a huge game, kind of a potential Super Bowl matchup if you want to go that far. The Ravens are at home, favored by 4.5. Giving it to you, sir.
I think that head coaches look a lot better when their certain head coaches look a lot better when their coordinators make them look good. And this thing about losing your two really good coordinators in the same offseason, I think might take them a little while to get over it, or it might just be the signal the end of their run. Like I said this before week one, that I just had this sense that it could be that Detroit is the team that peaked, that is never going to go get back to the heights that they had. Maybe they're still a good team, and maybe they will, but I think they're not quite as special as they have been. So I'm gonna suggest that they can't go to Baltimore. It's very unlikely they're going to go to Baltimore. Baltimore, the only thing they really can do in this game to really mess this up would be to turn the ball over, or have a lot of drops, make mistakes that give a team like Detroit a chance. If you give them some openings, yes, of course, Detroit can counterpunch you and win plenty of ball games. But yeah, I feel like, once again, Detroit, they win on the basis of the fact that they get this, they have a good edge rusher, and they've always had a solid plan, plenty good at running the football, and they got Jahmyr Gibbs and whatever. But some of those things are not as important when you play against Baltimore. I think against Baltimore, you have to be super stout on the offensive and defensive lines, or they will absolutely annihilate you. All the other stuff is candy. Lamar Jackson, running around and their tight ends down the field and downfield passing games. That's all pretty, but really they're just fist fighting you to death, gut punching you. So in order to hold up to that, Baltimore just needs to avoid the big mistakes, and basically beat the will out of Detroit over the course of the game, which I think they will.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because everyone, I think, kind of wrote off Detroit after their week one loss to Green Bay. They come back and just pummel, what people thought was going to be a better Chicago team. Not so sure anymore there either. And I know there was a little bit of a revenge game with Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell being there. Very interesting. It sounds like there's a little bit of a tiff there. They almost barely talked when they went to shook hands at midfield. But moving on to this game, I think this is going to be a very close game. I don't really think either defense is going to do much this game. Honestly, I think both these teams are built to move the ball and score. Detroit's going to have the ball last, and they're going to get a kickoff to win it. I'm going to say Detroit finds a way to win. Not saying that it'll be big or anything, but I think Dan Campbell's heard enough of I've lost two coordinators this season too. Came out all pissed off last week, and it's like, if we see that version of Detroit, I think they'll be able to stay in this ball game, because I do expect Derrick Henry to bounce back from a bad game against whoever they played last week. He only had 23 yards and a lost fumble again. So I know he'll be raring to go back, but something tells me Detroit just has a little bit more offensively across the board. I think this could be a big week for our guy Isaac Tesla. Come in, make a few more plays.
Yeah, they haven't played him. They haven't played him that much. He's not gotten the snaps that I thought he would get, because I really thought that they were enamored with him, but maybe it's year one. Receivers in year one often don't get the looks.
Right. But again, I just think Detroit has just a little bit more offensively around the ball. And I'm just saying they're going to find a way to tack a late field goal on to win a very close game. So that brings us to our 5-star matchup of the week. 5 stars. Our Pittsburgh Steelers are headed to New England to take on the Patriots. Let me double check here the line.
It's not enough, whatever it is.
Yeah, Steelers are favored by 1.5 going into New England. So I'm really
come on.
Yeah.
The betting public watch NFL football. Come on.
I know. It's like that is
favored in this game at New England. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, that is like an impossible line. I'll go first since this is kind of our sixth game, but I don't think we're gonna. It'll be another really like back and forth game. I don't expect either offense to like really go off or anything. I think Pittsburgh's can be a little pissed off from their performance, so maybe they play a little bit better defensively, even though we're missing several defensive linemen, some that will not be named at this point. They've already taken up enough of our time. Man, it's a tough one for me. I'm going to go Steelers 17-13. It just feels like a game where not much is going to get going. I think the Steelers are going to be like hyper fixed on the run a little bit at times. And if we get them in advantageous situations, that's when we'll let Herbig and Watt and Jack Sawyer go off. Shout out to Sawyer, got his first NFL sack last week, so kudos to him.
Hey, kudos. It's a lot easier when they don't block you. But
yeah. Hey, it's a stat either way, brother.
We've had guys who weren't blocked who still couldn't sack the quarterback, so good for him.
Yeah. But just pull out a squeaker, kind of never comfortable type of game, do a little bit better against the run. But yeah, 17-13 Pittsburgh. Well,
I don't know. I see this a little different. You and Korey picked something similar. That is the kind of score that the Steelers have lost to the Patriots the last 2 times against kind of worse teams than what New England has right now. And the Steelers were better, I think, at those times, except for at quarterback. So I kind of feel like even if they, really quote unquote commit more to stopping the run, I think in a way that's a mistake because I think it just makes them vulnerable to the pass. They've already had troubles against the pass. They just, they need to try to do some different things, but I can't see them doing a whole lot different. I think there will be some more points than you guys think there will be. And I think this game is like a 27-23 game. It's going to look very similar to week 1.
Okay.
So in week 1, the Steelers committed a blatant personal foul late hit on the sidelines that was not called. And New York committed to foul the exact same thing. They got called. Big, huge difference to prolong a drive. Their kicker missed an extra point. Our kicker hit 2 super field goals from distance. We fumbled the kickoff. The other team recovered. I mean, we fumbled the kickoff. We recovered. The other team fumbled the kickoff. We recovered again. I'm just saying this, like the margin in that game was already wafer thin, and the Steelers won 34-32 or something. They won
34-32.
So I think it's the threat of a running quarterback makes it very difficult to stop the run. For a team like Pittsburgh, who can't, they don't have enough talent or scheme to stop everything. So I think this threat at the quarterback run really slows down the pass rush, and it really keeps edge defenders from crashing down hard in the run game, right? So that thing where you see TJ Watt come from the backside and chase down running plays, he's a tickle 8 against a quarterback who's a threat to keep it on an RPO and go outside. Just the nature of playing good defense against the RPO. I see this being a 27-23 game. My trouble is that I'm having, even just sitting here now, I'm having trouble imagining which team gets the 27 because it's like, it's going to be dependent upon, it's going to be dependent on who which close plays go one way or the other. Right. So yeah, I kind of feel like the Steelers are going to close the barn door after the horses are out, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to solve their problem of stopping the other team. I would say Christian Gonzalez playing in this game is a really big difference. They've had so many problems in their secondary on the outside. So if Gonzalez plays, I'm going to call it New England 27-23. And honest to God, if Gonzalez is inactive, I'm going to make it 27-23 Steelers. I think that's enough of a difference in the game. I just think these defensive problems are going to take longer to fix, and they're deeper than just personnel. And until the sort of the mindset of what they're doing and who they're playing and what roles changes, it's going to be still ugly on defense.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being optimistic one more week and hoping, we can correct some of our issues.
Be very Steelers like to bounce back and have a convincing win, or win any win as a bounce back would be very typical of how their seasons have gone.
Yeah. But, if we go out there and we see the same tired bullshit on defense, my attitude mid-game will change, because it's like, okay, we're not really doing anything, different than what we said we're going to try to do. So,
yeah.
I know Mike Tomlin was chomping at the bit to get back to practice this week. So we'll see if that really means anything or not come Sunday. So, Well, with that being said, thank you all for joining us here at another SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. Know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, joined by Wil Masisak, known as Bradshaw the Bin, and Accidental Zen on Twitter. And shout out to Korey for giving us some good stuff here when he could jump in. Epic Loudermilk rant. I'm always gonna.
I feel like the audience needs like some gummies or a glass of scotch or something after this week, and maybe we can celebrate a little bit more over next week. But they're gonna have to prove it to me, I think.
Yep. Offense needs to take another leap. We'll see how we go. Here we go, Steelers.
Here we go. Come on, hang in there.